Hi, this is Jean Henningsen with Monarch Leadership Group, and we're talking about how to lead through a crisis and make a difference. And with me here today is Scot Quintel. He is the president of the United Way of Marion County. Scot, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, Gene, thank you for the opportunity to join you. It's really a nice little chance to get together and talk about some of the things that we as a community are going through.
Yeah, and it's just a little bit, isn't it? We're not going through that much.
It varies day by day.
Yes, it does for sure. So it's been a while since your office has been closed and your employees have been working remotely. Tell me, how have you been doing and how has things changed for the United Way?
Yeah, it's changed pretty significantly. First of all, things are going well. All of our employees are healthy. Everybody's able to work from home. From both the business side, we're taking care of things for the organization. On the personal side, everybody's doing well. Um,
Excellent. Good.
One of the biggest changes, as you go through a process like this, is it reminds you the importance of our health and our well-being, and that is important as we want to focus on the work that we do in any kind of organization. Our well-being and the well-being of our families are of course our number one priority, and that's gone well. uh,
Yes.
but Gina, has been a little bit different to work in a remote setting. It's a little bit of a change in focus as we've gone through this. Some of the things that, at least there's kind of been three phases, if you will. Initially, there was getting ready to shift to that work at home environment and the focusing on COVID-19 and the pandemic and what we needed to do to address that and make sure our staff could stay safe and could still focus on their work. It was logistically more challenging for us to get done what we need to do. I think it still is. Sometimes it feels like things that we take for granted, how easy they can be, there's maybe another step involved now. We moved into a second phase where once we got everything in place, the focus then became, how do we provide these additional services for the community? How do we respond to the community's needs during this time? We've been pretty successful in doing that, I think, and I think we'll talk a little bit more about that today. And then that third phase then became kind of the realization, okay, we've got everything set up, it's operating, we've addressed the immediate need of the pandemic. How do we now keep our organization operating? The other things that we do on a regular basis that still need to be done, how do we get those things maintained? How do we accomplish those? And so we've kind of gone through those transitions, but for the most part, it's moved very well.
Excellent. Excellent. Good. I'm glad to hear that. So you have all of your employees are working remotely, correct?
Correct. Correct.
And
We've got a couple of folks that for essential services need to come into the office from time to time, but we make sure we stagger those. So, for example, I'm actually doing this today from the office because I was here a little bit ago working on some other projects. Our finance directors had to come in a time or two to take care of some financial issues. So even when we have had a couple people in the office, we're social distancing, right? I think that's going to be the term that we all remember now for the rest of our lives, is how to socially distance. And so we've been able to accomplish that. We have also, to make sure we're keeping the staff healthy and safe because they are coming into the office. We've increased the amount of custodial and cleaning services that we get in the office to make sure it's a safe and healthy environment.
oh yeah, a lot of people have been doing that for sure. So, okay. So leading your team through this crisis and through these steps that you outlined, something you all have never done before. Most of them are remote with the
Right.
occasional, coming into the office, but you're really not seeing each other, spending time together, working together. What challenges have presented themselves as the leader of this organization?
Yeah, and how do you maintain that sense of normalcy, right? Because the interaction of your team and your staff is so important. So um,
Yes.
we have managed to continue to see each other, um, not, I guess I would say virtually, right? So we've been doing Zoom meetings. And we've tailored that. We have now been working remotely for about 4 weeks. And over the course of that 4 weeks, we've changed the frequency. So when we first went to working remotely, it was daily Zoom meetings. So every morning, all staff would be on a Zoom call. So we were looking at each other as we were kind of discussing staff type activities. We're an office that normally has a weekly staff meeting. We went to daily, especially early on, to make sure that everybody had the technology and it was functioning correctly and we could all communicate. That's really one of the biggest things with this is that I've found is um, as a leader, it's more important to spend a greater amount of your time communicating in a situation like this, not just about the work that each individual has a responsibility for, but also the organization as a whole, right? So providing reassurance that working from home is okay and that it's working and folks are being able to get their pieces done, and inquiring as to the needs of the staff as a whole, but also for individuals to make sure that they're feeling supported, has really been an added step for me during this point in time, because I need to make sure that in addition to the organization, that staff's being taken care of. There's little things we do on a daily basis when we're all in the same building. When you bump into somebody walking down the hall, or you talk, or you pop ahead into an office, I've kind of always referred to it as management by walking around, and I would do that occasionally. That's a lot more difficult to do when walking around would be all over Marion County. So showing up on their doorstep, we do that virtually, but it's just being intentional to make sure that that we're focusing that way. A big part of it is about expectations. So I'm a big believer that in any role as a leader, a big part of what you do is you set a level of expectation for those that you work with and that work for you. You need to make sure then that they have the tools and resources needed to meet that expectation. And you need to be open. So if there's things that they need, they have to feel comfortable coming to you and making sure that you're giving them the tools and resources they need to be successful. And then it's about maintaining that expectation and assuring, doing the follow-up to make sure that as an organization, you're hitting those marks. It takes a little bit more to do during a time like this, but it's been a good learning experience.
Yes, I think we've all learned a lot through this for sure. Now, what about the connection? So you mentioned the management by walking around and running into people in the hallways and having those more personal, casual conversations. It's a great way to know what's going on with your employees, because if somebody's going through a hard time, you're going to pick up on that. Right? Because there you are face to face in the hallway, and it's like, wait a minute, something's not right. And you have the opportunity to, allow them to share and perhaps, help them work through that, whatever it may be. Now you're talking via camera. And how do you maintain that connection and making sure that all of your employees are keeping their spirits up, that they're not feeling isolated or lonely or overwhelmed, or what the myriad of emotions that people experience during this time?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And so one of the things when we, even before, I think it was the last staff meeting we had before we went to working from home, one of the things we talked about was, the small talk that happens when you walk into someone else's office and you see the pictures of their family on their desk, or that they go to the gym quite a bit. And I've encouraged staff to, when they're reaching out to each other via phone or via Zoom meetings, to continue to have that small talk as a part of their interaction, right? To express care and concern for each other.
Yeah.
And so that's been one of the things that we talked about early on. Have picked up the phone and called staff periodically just to check in. We have some folks on our staff that are resource development professionals. Their job is making friends for a living. So if you are energized by interacting with others out in the community, now you're put in a position where you've got to be at home in just depends on the size of your home, I guess, but a confined space, whether that's room or multiple rooms. There are limits as far as where you can go and what you can do. That can be a challenge. And so I had the opportunity or misfortune, depends on how you look at it. Years ago, when I was with another United Way in Texas, due to a hurricane, the offices of the United Way were damaged. I worked from home for a month and a half. I had some experience there, and I didn't like it. I'm finding it more comfortable this time because of lessons learned back then, and shared that with the staff. As we were getting ready for this, and encouraged them to reach out to each other, and said, if you call one of your coworkers, it doesn't always have to be about work. Call and just say, hey, how you doing? Have those conversations that you would typically have when you were in the office. We've also used levity. I use levity a lot, both with the staff and our volunteers, and our board members have come to learn that as the culture of our organization. And I think that can break the tension quite a bit. I'll give you a couple of examples. As we've had our Zoom meetings on a regular basis with staff, a number of staff now have kids that are staying at home, and they're on their Zoom meeting, and the child walks into the room, and they're trying to keep the child off screen and not be distracted. And I call the kids in. It's like, hey, put this child. I'll keep the names out of it, right? But I'll call their kids in and say, and ask them questions and have them be a part of it, because that's real and that's who we are, individuals. One of our coworkers, her husband, it's ironic, our staff meetings happen at 8:30. It seems like every day at 9 o'clock he goes out the door that's in the background behind her. And so while we're on the Zoom meeting, when I see him head for the door, I always tell him goodbye. It's a little bit of an interruption, and then we get back to business, but it's keeping things real and making sure that folks feel cared for and supported. The last example I will give you, and this was, I think it's funnier because it was my mistake. I had the opportunity early during this period of time to go out, and I found that there was a place that had toilet paper available, right? Because everybody's worried about toilet paper. So I bought 2 packages. I bought one for me, being selfish. I bought the other one, and I brought it into the office. And I set it in my office, and I sent out an email to all the staff. I said, if anybody's having a hard time, having a difficult time finding toilet paper, there's a package in my office. Feel free to help yourself. I then opened my package and found out that I had not bought toilet paper. I had bought paper towels.
Oh, no.
I then had to send another email out to the staff saying, okay, it's not toilet paper, it's paper towels. So about a week later, I had the opportunity to actually get toilet paper. And the subject line of my email when it went out to all the staff was, I didn't screw up this time. That also is a way that we can help our staff and the people that we work with feel more comfortable, is to show that, look, none of us are infallible. We all make mistakes. It's about our intention and effort that we put forward, and to show that it's okay to make those mistakes, and if you have to be the butt of the joke from time to time to show that, that's okay.
Yes, absolutely. It shows that we're human, doesn't it? And
Yes,
if
it
you're
does.
showing that more human side of you, you're being vulnerable, then that's going to make them feel more comfortable opening up to you and being
Correct.
vulnerable with you. So,
Right. Yeah. Because as a leader, if you have staff that's struggling, you want to know that, right? You don't want your staff to be like, oh, I'm having a really hard time working from home, or I'm having a problem accessing the technology, and I don't want a department head, or I don't want somebody else on staff to know that I'm having those difficult times. Make it okay to have those challenges and show that we all have them. Then you're alleviating that burden, and you're taking that off their shoulders.
yes, absolutely. So, as the leader, Scott, you have to keep yourself strong, right? And you have to make sure that you are taking care of yourself as the leader in order to be there for your employees. So, what have you done to maintain your own personal, physical, mental, and spiritual health?
Probably not enough. I'm not a big gym guy, so folks that know me know that you're not going to see me do a lot of physical exercising. But I actually have started doing physical exercises.
Ooh, great.
I found that
Congratulations.
I'm hoping that's a habit that I don't stick with, but it's, you know, it's been something that's helped. I think one of the biggest things is, you know, looking at this from a long-term standpoint. And you've got to realize it's not going to be this way forever. You know, one of the things I was really looking forward to, once I found out we were going to be working from home and transitioning to this environment, I said, okay, there's a pool at the condo. I can spend a lot of time at the pool. That's going to be my refuge, right? It's going to be my safe place. And so the day we closed the office and I went home, I grabbed my towel and put my bathing suit on, and got ready to go to the pool, and found a sign on the gate that said it was closed until further notice.
Oh no.
There went Scott's mental well-being. But you know, the other thing that I've done a few times, you know, so reaching out, talking with others, being considerate of the condition and the well-being of the staff has helped. So I've found that when I've called an individual and said, hey, I know this is really tough for you to be stuck at home. How are you doing? And having that conversation has been as helpful to me as I think it's been to that person, right? So that kind of nurtures and feeds my concerns, limits my stress. The other thing that I've done, and hopefully no one from OPD watches this video, is there have been a couple of times where I've just gotten in the car and drove. You know, I know we want to be careful about where we go, but I figured if I got in the car and I didn't get out of the car and I wasn't exposing anyone to me or me to anybody else, just sometimes getting behind the wheel, so it's a change of scenery, has helped me to kind of relax, recenter myself, and then be ready to go again.
Yes, yes. And to your point about your helping others, helping yourself, you know, Ben Marciano from the Zone, he mentioned that yesterday, which I thought that was so beautiful, and something that many of us forget, that the rising tide lifts all ships, right? And so getting in that mindset and remembering that when you help others, you really are helping yourself as well.
Yeah,
So
and it's a balance, right? Because with the increased workload, you know, finding the time sometimes to do that is a challenge. I have an aunt and an uncle that live right here in Ocala. They are in their 80s, and so going out to get anything that they need could be very difficult, or could be, you know, a hazard to them. So I've reached out to them on multiple occasions to make sure that they have what they need, and if there's anything that they need to have brought to them, I can bring it. I can drop it off on the doorstep. They have not asked me to do that yet, so I don't know that I've helped them as much as just reaching out to have that conversation with them has helped me, as we look to, you know, take care of those around us.
yes, yes, we have to take care of each other for sure. Now, United Way does so much for our community. I mean, that is really the purpose of the United Way, right? To support
Right.
local community and the local nonprofits. So, how have you been able to continue doing that? And maybe what have you done in addition to, perhaps, since we have been experiencing this pandemic and you all have been working remotely? How has the United Way further contributed to our community?
Sure. So, you know, we have an annual fundraising effort. We have 25 partner organizations that we fund in the community. All of that has been maintained. There's not a single organization that has had reduced funding or hasn't received funding over this period of time, nor will they. We're committed to that. Um, I'll talk about three things that United Way specifically has done in addressing the pandemic issues. But before that, I really want to give recognition to our community as a whole. You know, we've got a lot of great organizations in this community,
Yeah.
and I've seen two things really happen. Number one, I've seen organizations coming together to meet the need collectively. And I've also seen organizations understand where their primary role is and where their kind of secondary or tertiary role would be, and letting another organization that has that as their primary role step into that. So working with partnerships at the Chamber and Economic Partnership, the CEP, working with the Marion County Hospital District, working with the Community Foundation. We've had great communication amongst all these organizations, understanding what the primary focus of each of those entities are and looking at how we align. It's that old saying, staying in your lane, right? Making sure that everybody's staying in their lane, making sure they have what they need to address their lane successfully, and then make sure that we're being a support to others, but that we're not crossing paths and duplicating services. So I think that Marion County has done a great job of that, which frankly doesn't surprise me because this is a community that works together so well on a regular basis. We've done three things, Gene, that I think have been very impactful as we've gone through this. The first thing we did is we partnered with the school district and Interfaith Emergency Services to recognize that there would be approximately 1,900 children in Marion County that rely on breakfast and lunch at school and then food that they're able to bring home on the weekends to make sure that there is no food insecurity in their household. And this kind of threatened that once the schools closed down. The schools have been amazing in understanding that whether their primary role is to teach and to educate kids, but understanding the impact of those kids not being in school in other ways and how they've stepped up to do that. Been great to work with them and with Interfaith in that respect. We had a special food drive we did on the square, and it was a drive-by food drive, right? So no one was within 6 feet of each other. People didn't get out of their vehicles. They just handed the bag and kept going. We raised 11,000 pounds of food through that one food drive, which was bigger than what is typically done in the fall Bring Home the Harvest food drive. So that was very exciting, and to see that those food stocks would be shared amongst the different schools in the community across Marion County, so families that were having food insecurity could go and to get those items. So that was pretty exciting. We were excited to be a part of that, and it worked very well.
Yeah, that was incredible. We drove by. I remember seeing you and delivered our packages of food. I'm glad that you shared how much, because I have been wondering about that. Now, are you still using that supply to give to families, or has that been depleted?
So that food supply has been pretty much depleted. That's one of the challenges. The other piece, and had some conversation with Carla from Interfaith the other day. They rely heavily on the mail carrier food drive that usually takes place in May.
Oh,
That's
great.
them through the summer months into the beginning of the school year. Unfortunately, that letter carrier food drive will not be taking place this year. So one of the things we're watching closely is how are the food pantries going to be able to handle and make sure they have enough product to go through the summer and meet the needs that families will have. So I think there's going to be some more things we're going to have to do to address that as we go through May. To make sure that those resources are there for folks that have that need. And so we'll watch that closely. The second thing we did was in the middle of April, United Way announced the launch of our COVID-19 Assistance Fund. So United Way committed $150,000 to assist families that had been financially impacted by COVID-19. So we have not gotten into the healthcare realm as far as doing any healthcare for individuals impacted. But we know that just as important as that health piece, there's the financial stability piece for our economy. There's a report Alice does every 2 years, or United Way does every 2 years. It's called the Alice Report, which stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, and Employed. This really speaks to folks that are working but living paycheck to paycheck. They're in a position where an unanticipated expense of a car breaking down or having to replace an appliance would put them in a position where they wouldn't be able to pay the rent, utilities, and put food on the table. 51% of the families in Marion County fall into that category, Gene. So it's a pretty large group.
Yes.
And when you see that there are people that are going to have their employment eliminated or reduced, we knew that we needed to step in and take action. So with the COVID-19 fund, anyone who has lost their employment or had their hours reduced by more than 50% is eligible to receive financial assistance. That financial assistance is not a check to the individual, but it's a payment of their rent or mortgage and their utilities. And so it capped it up to $1,000 per household. So we've gone through the majority of those funds. In addition to the 150,000 that United Way put in, there was about an additional 50,000 contributed from the community by some very generous individuals and organizations. I can tell you that as of the day before yesterday, there were 137 families that had been assisted. And that there were some more families that had their applications in. We anticipate by the time that fund wraps up, probably around the end of May, that we will have assisted somewhere between 170 to 200 families here in Marion County through that fund.
Wow, that's incredible, because that means they don't have to lose their home.
Right, right.
That's
Want to make sure.
amazing.
And we want to make sure those resources are there. You know, the utility companies have been very generous to suspend cutoffs, and they're being very flexible with families. But you know, just because they don't have a cutoff, that doesn't mean that bill doesn't need to be paid, right? So that $150 utility bill in April, if it's not paid in April, it's probably going to be a $300 bill in May. And so making sure that families have the ability to plan and resources to meet those needs when those cutoffs start to come again, or when the expectation is that we get through the pandemic, we need to make sure those resources are there. The third thing we talked earlier about toilet paper. We'll do that again. So I guess that could be the theme of our chat today. We, over the last few days, we're still finalizing the final details, but we've got a commitment. United Way of Marion County is going to be receiving 73,728 rolls of toilet paper.
Wow.
County. We are doing that in partnership with 4 other United Ways. So our neighbors on all sides, north, south, east, and west of us, will be receiving a portion of that as well. But Marion County will be the distribution place. I guess when Kevin Shealy talks about us being the hub of logistics, he is completely correct, because that's where the truck is coming. Quintel and Kimberly-Clark very generously have made a commitment to communities across the country to provide 1 million rolls of toilet paper to communities in need. And so one of those trucks is going to be coming here to Marion County, and we'll be distributing to those other United Ways. Also, some of our great partners here in town, Interfaith, like I mentioned before, Brothers Keeper, Salvation Army, they will be getting all of the material that stays here in Marion County, and being able to distribute that out to families in need.
Wow, that's amazing. And how generous of Kimberly-Clark. Wow.
It's pretty exciting. You know, it's one of those things that never in my life did I feel that I would be the recipient of a full semi truck full of toilet paper. Never in my life did I expect to be in a pandemic either. So,
Well, now you can put that on your resume, that you received a truckload of toilet paper. Now, how are you determining the families that get the toilet paper? Is it based on need, or is it anybody who wants it?
so I think there will be a need basis for that, or that's the piece we still need to work out. The truck isn't coming until May. So we've got a little bit of time to figure that out, and we'll work with our partners here in the community. United Way will not be a direct distribution point, but because of our global relationship with Kimberly-Clark, we were able to secure the assets, and we'll let organizations like Interfaith and Salvation Army and Brothers Keeper, who are frontline folks. And I got to tell you, I've been amazed by the work that organizations like that do, because they're not just taking a step back and saying, hey, we need to keep our staff safe and we can't engage with the public. They understand that those needs for food and for shelter and for things like toilet paper go on a daily basis, and they're making sure that their staff and volunteers are there to meet the needs within the community. And I certainly would never ever take anything away from the first responders, right, that are dealing with patients that are COVID-19 positive, and the challenges that they face. But I think that a lot of these social service organizations are really doing a great job as well. And there's so many parts of our community that are stepping up and into the role to address need as it exists. It's pretty exciting and motivating to see that.
Yes, absolutely. And not just the organizations coming together, but as you said earlier, the people coming together. So a request is made and people come out and they meet that need. And that's really what it takes, doesn't it, to get a community through something like this, is bringing everyone together, because we are stronger when we reach
Right.
out and we help each other through something like this. So, well, I am so happy that you are the leader of our local United Way. And
Thank
thank
you.
you for everything that you and your staff have been doing, all these efforts that you've mentioned that you've been spearheading. And I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be standing in line waiting for that toilet paper in May. So that's a beautiful thing. And thank you for taking the time today. I really do appreciate it, Scott.
Sure, Gene. I just really appreciate the opportunity to sit down and chat with you for a little bit. I've really enjoyed it. And I'm just going to use this opportunity to anyone who sees this out from Marion County. Thank you to everybody out there. I've said it before, I'll say it again. This is a very generous community, whether it's supporting any of the nonprofit or for-profit organizations. The care and concern that I've seen people express for frontline service workers, whether it's someone that works in a restaurant that's closed, whether it's a neighbor that has a special need, or just looking out for others that we see around us. That's really what makes Marion County special. It's why I'm so excited that this is the place I get to call home, and I'm humbled by the things I see the average everyday citizen do on the street every day. So Marion County, thank you for all you're doing to step up to make sure that your friends and neighbors are taken care of.
Beautiful, Scott. Perfect way to end. Thank
Thank
you.
you.